In my last life, my husband had a heart attack and was sent to the hospital by his colleagues. When I rushed to the hospital, my husband had already passed away. I was so sad that I fainted from crying. When I woke up again, my husband had already been cremated. Before I could even grieve, the loan agency came to collect the debt. I then learned that my husband actually owed tens of millions of loans, and I was the only heir to my husband's will. 10 years later, I was hunched over picking up garbage on the road, but I saw my husband, who should have died, driving a luxury car and laughing with his mistress. My husband smiled and threw down 100 yuan to thank me for my efforts. My body had long been exhausted by fatigue, and I was angry to death on the spot. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the day when my husband had a heart attack. Sister-in-law, you have to mourn and take care of yourself. We have tried our best to rescue him. But Brother Ma is still. Dongjuan, my husband Ma Zhenye's good brother and his attending physician, looked deeply regretful and spoke some medical terms that I didn't understand. He reached out and helped me sit on the sofa. Sister-in-law, you'd better not look at it. I'm afraid you can't bear it. I looked at myself in the glass opposite, still young, with no scars left on my hands due to long-term labor. I took a few deep breaths and finally confirmed that I was reborn. In my previous life, I got the news that Ma Zhenya had a heart attack and rushed to the hospital. I rushed all the way and ran through 3 red lights, but I was still a step late. I held the death certificate and cried so hard that I almost fainted. When I woke up, Ma Zhenya had been cremated, leaving me only a small urn. I held the urn at home without eating or drinking, but what I waited for was several lawyers and major loan companies. It was at this time that I knew that I was the only heir to the property in Ma Zhenye's will. I tried to hold on to my body and wanted to sort out the financial situation, but I found that Ma Zhenye's company was an empty shell, leaving me only tens of millions of loans. The house was soon auctioned by the court. I had nowhere to go. I wanted to seek help from Wang Yulon, but Wang Yulon didn't see me at all. The following days were very difficult for me. I rented a small carport. There were debt collectors coming to my door almost every day. In order to survive and pay off my debts, I worked 4 jobs every day. However, after being executed by the court, I could only make ends meet and had to bear the illness. Until one day, when I was picking up garbage, I saw Ma Zhenya, who had passed away 10 years ago, driving a car and talking and laughing with a woman. I rushed up to see clearly. Ma Zhenya did not hide his identity at all. He laughed at me for looking like I was 70 at the age of 40. He threw me 100 yuan and thanked me for my 10 years of hard work. I was so angry that I died on the spot. Ma Zhenya walked away as if he didn't see it. Thinking of this, I made a decision. Dongjuan kept urging me to drink water. I came to my senses, but I didn't drink water, because I remember that I fainted after drinking this glass of water in my previous life. I can be almost 100% sure that this glass of water must have been filled with something, just to make me miss Ma Zhenye's cremation. I put down the water cup and walked to Ma Zhenye's bedside despite Dongjuan's obstruction. Ma Zhenya looked ruddy, not like someone who had just died. It was because I was too sad and stupid in my previous life that I couldn't see this. But I still have to prove one thing first. I must know whether he is pretending to be asleep at this moment, or... I raised my hand and slapped Ma Zhenye's face hard. Ma Zhenya didn't move at all. It seemed that he was afraid of being discovered by me, so he was directly anesthetized. This is better, and my plan can be implemented more easily, Dongjuan screamed. Thinking that I found out that Ma Zhenya was pretending to be dead. Sister-in-law, you can't be so cruel even if you are angry. We can solve this. Thinking of the pain in the last life, I burst into tears, but my hands did not stop. And I beat Ma Zhenya all over his body. Seeing that Dongjuan was about to explode, I cried and complained. I told you to stay up less late, but you didn't listen. What should I do if you leave me alone? Dongjuan knew that I didn't find out, and beating people was just a way for me to express sadness. But he was still a little worried when he saw how cruel my men were. He stammered, Sister-in-law, be gentle. Brother Ma will feel pain. I stopped and looked at Dongjuan as if I was looking at an idiot. Why, Xiaodong, is it that people who have just died will feel pain? Dongjuan swallowed his saliva and regretted saying this. He pulled the corner of his mouth awkwardly. No, he just couldn't speak for a long time. I was too lazy to entangle with him, so I took out my mobile phone and made a call. Dongjuen was stunned to see my change so quickly. Sister-in-law, who are you calling? I didn't answer him. Of course I called Wang Yulon, because Ma Zhenyer's death was fake. Although Wang Yulon knew about it, she never came to the hospital or the crematorium. If I don't ask her to come now, will she come to the crematorium to make trouble? What's more, I must ask Wang Yulon or the mistress to come. If I cremate Ma Zhenyer directly now, Wang Yulon will definitely go to the police station to sue me, saying that Dongjuen and I murdered Ma Zhenyer. My chance to be reborn is rare. And I can't go to jail for murder. Again, I must give myself a perfect reason to get rid of the crime, and I must also make Wang Yulon regret it. I looked at Dongjuen strangely. Don't you think Mom should see Juen for the last time? Dongjuen smiled. Yes, it's time to call Auntie. Wang Yulon answered the phone impatiently. Why are you calling me? I cried and said, Mom, Zhenyer is gone. Please come to the hospital to see him for the last time. Wang Yulon said oh. Thinking that what I said about Ma Zhenyer was a bit unlucky, but still said she would come right away, for Wang Yulon walked over slowly, and she hadn't even taken off the curlers on her head. It seemed that she was having a beauty treatment. She was relieved to see Ma Zhenyer still in good condition on the bed. Maybe I looked a little confused when I saw her. She smiled and slapped me directly. You bitch, you killed my son, and you didn't even cry. Wang Yulon winked at Dongjuen and accused Ma Zhenyer. Why don't you cover my son up? Don't you want him to die in peace? Dongjuen was relieved and took the white cloth to cover Ma Zhenyer. Wang Yulon sat on the sofa next to me, pointing at me and cursing, and kicked me a few times when she got angry. You damn bitch, if you weren't so tough, how could my son die? I was not angry. After all, the pain was too mild compared to my previous life. Besides, the more realistic your acting is, the better it will be for me. I covered my face and cried, Mom, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I've lost Zhenyer. Don't be sad. Wang Yulon slapped me again. Go back now. I don't want to see you. I'll send my son to the crematorium later. I said okay. Knelt on the ground and handed the water that Dongjuen had just brought me to Wang Yulon. Wang Yulon didn't doubt it, and because of nervousness and constant cursing, her mouth had already dried up. And she drank the water in one breath. Dongjuen wanted to stop her, but it was too late. Just 2 minutes after drinking, Wang Yulon fell asleep, and the cold sweat that Dongjuen had just dried up immediately appeared again. Dongjuen thought for a moment. Auntie fainted suddenly. I'm afraid there is something wrong. You should take her to the emergency room. I will arrange Ma Ji's cremation myself. How can that be? How can I trouble you with such a thing? You are a doctor. You know more than me. You should take care of my mother. I will go to send the cremation, I said. I directly contacted the crematorium and asked them to come immediately. Dongjuen was still shirking with me. There is no rush for cremation. Wait for Auntie to wake up. Ma Ji will not run away again. I said directly, Xiaodong, Zhenyer is dead. The dead are not as important as the living. You and Zhenyer are as close as brothers, but you are not sad today. And you always say such strange things. What do you want? Dongjuen was anxious like an ant on a hot pot and kept trying to wake up Wang Yulon. But Wang Yulon was like a dead pig no matter how she shook, until the crematorium staff had already pushed Ma Zhenyer away. Dongjuen finally couldn't help it and pulled my sleeve, his voice hoarse. Sister-in-law, I just seemed to see Ma Ji move. Let's rescue him again. I held the death certificate in front of Dongjuen. Xiaodong. Think it over before you speak. Have you ever considered, if Ma Ji is really alive now, what responsibilities will your hospital bear, and what responsibilities will you bear? You call this murder. This is called taking human life lightly. I don't know if the hospital can continue to operate, but you will definitely go in, so think about it again. Did you really see Zhenyer move? Dongjuen was so anxious that he didn't know how to refute. I sneered and shook off Dongjuen's hand, and followed the crematorium car. Dongjuen groaned, picked up the phone and started to call. I looked at Ma Zhenyer lying on the stretcher and couldn't help laughing. In my last life, when I met Ma Zhenyer on the street, his face was almost the same as now, with almost no trace of time. I threw myself in front of the car and wanted to recognize him, and wanted to cry about the suffering I had suffered over the years. Ma Zhenyer squinted his eyes and took a long time to barely recognize me, and said with a smile, "It's you. How come you look older than my grandmother after only 10 years of not seeing you?" I was hoarse and hunched at the time, and I really didn't look like a 40-year-old man. I stammered and asked, Aren't you dead?" At that time, Ma Zhenya and Lin Shanshan, who was sitting next to him, laughed and leaned back. "I pretended to be dead to get rid of you." In fact, Ma Zhenya didn't finish his words, but what else could I not understand? If he asked for a divorce directly, I couldn't refuse, but if he divorced directly, I would take half of his property, and he would have a reputation of cheating and abandoning his wife. But faking death would be different. Not only can all the debts be left to me, all the assets can be transferred, and I can also change my identity and be with Lin Shanshan fearlessly and openly. I was so angry that I couldn't speak, but Ma Zhenya seemed to be very interested in continuing to talk. He smiled and said to me, "In fact, I could hear you talking in the hospital at that time. I still remember the sound of your crying at that time. I am really curious, how can you cry like a goose by yourself? Goose, 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 it's really funny. Ha!" I fell to the ground with my hands on my chest in such laughter, but Lin Shanshan exclaimed, "Husband, she is not trying to scam me, let's go quickly." Ma Zhenya also shouted bad luck and drove away directly. Without caring about my life or death, my last memory is seeing the car go away, and then it fell into darkness. I was still immersed in painful memories, but I found that Ma Zhenya's fingers seemed to move. It seemed that he knew that I was going to be cremated, and the anesthesia was about to take effect. So he began to wake up. I urged the driver to go faster. "Master, please hurry up. My mother-in-law wants to snatch my husband's body and bury it, but now the country advocates cremation. And I don't want my husband to be bitten by insects underground." The driver responded and stepped on the accelerator, speeding up a lot. I lowered my head and threw myself on Ma Zhenya's chest, saying everything I didn't have the chance to say in my previous life. "I know you are not dead. I also know that you have cheated on me for a long time. You deliberately did this scene just to take Lin Shanshan to fly with me and leave me to pay off the debt. But I don't hate you. I decided to respect your idea. Since you want to die, I will send you to be cremated as soon as possible. I only know that you can hear what I say now, but I am not sure if you feel pain. I hope you can, so that you can feel the cremation. After all, you may be the first person to be cremated alive. You may wonder why I do this. How do I know all this? In fact, it doesn't matter to tell you now, because I have experienced what happened today once, in the last life. I believed as you wished and lived a miserable life, so don't blame me. You owe me all this." Ma Zhenya's fingers trembled slightly. He couldn't move, but tears flowed out. I reached out and wiped his tears. "Are you crying now? You will have time to cry when you enter the incinerator later." My cell phone kept ringing. It was Dong Jiwen and Wang Yulon calling. But I was just a poor woman who lost her husband. I didn't want to answer the phone at all, with the driver speeding all the way. The journey that originally took half an hour only took 20 minutes to arrive, but there were more people at the crematorium today, and it would take at least an hour for Ma Zhenya to get there. I pinched my thigh, groaned, and found the person in charge with tears in my eyes. My husband died of a sudden serious illness. My mother-in-law fainted after knowing it and is being rescued in the hospital. I must go back as soon as possible. Please let me cremate first. I don't want my mother-in-law to get into trouble. This is the first time that the crematorium staff has encountered such a person who wants to cut in line for cremation. He hesitated a little. "I know you are anxious, but others have been waiting for a long time. And I can't let you cut in line." Although he said so, he extended his hand meaningfully, and I understood that he wanted money. I knew there was no time to lose, so I took out my phone and transferred 2,000 yuan to him. "Brother, please help me. I am an orphan. My husband and mother-in-law are very good to me. I really can't lose my mother-in-law again." With the help of money, Ma Zhenya successfully jumped the queue and was pushed directly into the incinerator in less than 10 minutes. The staff was about to press the incineration button, but I stopped him. I couldn't let him become a murderer, and I also wanted to take revenge myself. Under my strong suggestion, the staff agreed to let me press the button. At this moment, the anxious voices of Wang Yulon and Dong Jiwen rang out at the door. "Stop, stop, don't cremate. Wang Yulon may not have completely metabolized the drug, or she may have been frightened, and she collapsed at the door. Stop it, push my son out." Dong Jiwen grabbed my hand that wanted to press the incineration button. "Sister-in-law, wait, Auntie has something to say to Brother Ma." Wang Yulon panted. "Get out of here. I don't allow you to cremate my son. I will do it myself." You drive her out, at this critical moment. The two of them still wanted to continue the plan of pretending to die. I knelt on the ground and said in a tea-faced voice, "Mom, Genier is gone. Let's bury him. I am Genier's wife. I will not leave." The dispute between the three of us attracted a lot of onlookers. The staff looked at each other in bewilderment. What kind of sad drama are you playing? The crematorium is not a place for you to play around. As he was about to press the incineration button, Dong Juan and Wang Yulon rushed over desperately to stop him, with very ferocious expressions. The staff was startled and subconsciously hid to the side. Dong Juan and Wang Yulon did not hold back, and they both pounced on the button. And the flames instantly engulfed Ma Zhenya. "Ah, ah," two screams came. Everyone looked at Dong Juan and Wang Yulon, but I stared at Ma Zhenya in the incinerator. Ma Zhenya should have woken up completely from the anesthesia. I vaguely saw him with his mouth open and his hand stretched out. But unfortunately, the noise outside was too loud, and no one noticed this place at all. After a minute, everyone turned back to look at the incinerator. The employees of the crematorium pointed at the incinerator curiously and discussed in a low voice, "This is the first time I've seen a hand that can be stretched so high. It's really like a living person." Yes. Before, it was just a little bit of muscle reaction. Fortunately, it happened during the day. If it was in the middle of the night, I would really think it was a corpse. I wiped away the non-existent tears, tried not to curl up the corners of my mouth, and said pitifully, "My husband treats my mother-in-law the best." This is probably because he heard the voice of his mother-in-law and wanted to sit up and take a last look at her. I cried to the incinerator and said, "Husband, have a good journey. Don't worry. I will take good care of our mother. I will try my best to reunite her with you as soon as possible." Coincidentally, when I said this, Ma Zhenya fell down. It seemed that he was dead. I was completely relieved. And the suffering of the last life seemed to disappear. Dong Juan ignored Wang Yulon, who was limp on the ground, and stumbled over. He was scared to death by the scene in the incinerator. He pressed the incineration button desperately. "Why won't the fire go out? Put out the fire quickly." It was the first time that the staff saw such an excited family member, and they quickly pushed Dong Juan away. "This relative, we know you are sad, but the dead cannot be resurrected. If you do this, he will not be at ease." Yes, and this is an intelligent incinerator. Once the fire is started, it must be burned out before it can be opened. Don't be impulsive. Dong Juan's face was frighteningly pale, and he sat down on the ground, muttering, "It's over, it's all over now." And then he looked at me again. "Sister-in-law, we called you. Why didn't you answer?" I sighed. How can I answer the phone? My mind is full of Genier's death. What should I do? Besides, cremation after death is a normal thing. Why do you want to stop it? Wang Yulon crawled to my feet with her hands and feet. "You bitch, you killed my son. Give me my son's life back." I sighed, but did not help Wang Yulon up, but took the death certificate and said, "Mom, I know you are very sad. But Genier's death has nothing to do with me. He died of a sudden heart attack, not me. If you don't believe me, ask Xiao Dong. He personally rescued Genier. And he also personally issued this death certificate to me." "Right, Xiao Dong." I looked at Dong Juan sideways. Dong Juan didn't know what to say. He said he wasn't dead. Then where did the death certificate come from? He said he was dead. Wang Yulon wouldn't believe it. But when I said that, Wang Yulon also reacted and suddenly grabbed Dong Juan's neck. "It's you. You killed my son. My son was obviously alive. But you insisted on issuing a death certificate. Now my son has been cremated. This is all your responsibility." I covered my mouth in surprise. "What, Mom? What are you talking about? Genier is not dead." I turned my head sharply and looked at Ma Zhenya, who was still cremating. No wonder when Genier entered the incinerator just now, I seemed to see his fingers moving. I thought it was my hallucination, but I didn't expect it to be true. Hearing what I said, Dong Juan grabbed his hair desperately, and after a long period of psychological preparation, he spoke. "It's true, Genier is not dead. He was just anesthetized. If you can wait a few more minutes, he will be able to wake up." But I still thought the matter was not big enough. "What, you mean, Genier was cremated alive and conscious?" This was so horrifying that everyone present was shocked. The staff member's face turned pale, and he muttered to himself, "No wonder, I just opened fire," and the guy inside suddenly reached out. "My God, this is murder." Wang Yulon rolled her eyes when she heard this, and fainted directly. I quickly reacted and slapped Dong Juan in the face. Xiaodong, are you sick? How can you make such a joke? My husband is dead, so why are you talking nonsense? Dong Juan was stunned by me. I'm not talking nonsense, I smiled. No, then tell me. Why did my husband need anesthesia? Why did you issue a death certificate for my husband? You should also draft a lie. Dong Juan didn't know how to explain it at all. The staff around him thought Dong Juan was joking and went about their own business. Seeing that Ma Zhenye's cremation was over, I looked extremely angry and left the crematorium with Ma Zhenye's ashes. Before leaving, I didn't forget to leave a message to Dong Juan. You scared my mother unconscious for no reason. You are responsible for sending her to the hospital. It's not that I don't want to stay and watch the fun and see how Wang Yulon will go crazy after she wakes up. It's really that I have other more important things to do. I casually put Ma Zhenye's ashes in a conspicuous place in the living room. Then I quickly contacted a lawyer and began to work on inheriting Ma Zhenye's company, inheritance and other matters. I was too sad in my last life. By the time I reacted, the company was gone. If I don't act quickly in this life, when Wang Yulon wakes up, she will definitely take it first. I can't be reborn once, which is equivalent to not being reborn. After completing the formalities, I looked at the tens of millions of foreign debts and fell into deep thought. Based on my understanding of Ma Zhenye, he couldn't have spent all this money to Lin Shanshan or Wang Yulon, but I have just checked and he does not have this money in his name, so he must have hidden this money. According to Ma Zhenye's consumption records, I found a garage he rented and went to the address. Sure enough, I found the cash. I quickly found a bank and a loan company, paid part of the interest and repaid the loan. After I did all this, I lay on the sofa, picked up a glass of red wine and smiled at Ma Zhenye on the wall. Husband, thank you. Now I have money, a house, a company, and no debts. I will live a very free and easy life in the future. Even more free and easy than you in your last life. I got drunk and fell asleep on the sofa. The next day, I was awakened by a knock on the door. I rubbed my head, which was aching from the hangover, and opened the door. Outside the door were Dong Juan and Wang Yulon, and a woman who looked a few years younger than me. It seemed that she was Lin Shanshan, whom I had seen in my previous life. She should have just given birth and her figure had not recovered yet. She was holding a baby in her arms. The three of them looked sad and had dark circles under their eyes. They probably had not slept well for several days and nights. They were followed by several policemen. Wang Yulon walked into the room, pointed at me and said, "Comrade police, this vicious woman cremated my son alive. You should catch her and cremate her directly. Let her have a taste of what it feels like." I had guessed that there would be this scene, but I didn't expect it to come so quickly. I sighed, "Mom, can you please stop joking like this?" As I said that, I took out the death certificate. "Comrade police, this is my husband's death certificate. My mother couldn't accept the death of her husband. She might have some mental problems." The policeman looked at the death certificate and said, "Well, there is nothing wrong with this." I sighed and continued. "My husband and I have been married for 5 years and have always had a very good relationship. I knew my husband had passed away and didn't want his body to rot, so I cremated him immediately. Is this wrong?" Wang Yulon covered her chest tightly and said, "You are talking nonsense. My son has long been disgusted with you, a hen that can't lay eggs. You did it on purpose. You deliberately jumped the cremation line to get my son's inheritance and company. I contacted the company yesterday and confirmed it. What else can you deny?" I looked incredulous and squeezed out a few tears. "Mom, you can scold me, but my feelings for Zhenye are real. If Zhenye and I had no feelings, how could he let me be the only heir to his inheritance?" Wang Yulon couldn't refute it. I paused and continued, "You said Zhenye is still alive. Why don't you think about it? In such a big hospital, can't you even tell whether a person is dead or alive?" Xiaodong told me in person that Zhenye was brain dead and his heart stopped beating. Which living person is like this? Wang Yulon motioned Dong Juan to speak, but Dong Juan just lowered his head, thinking about it. If he admits that the death certificate is fake now, it will be a big sin. It is better to make a mistake. The scene fell into a deadlock. Lin Shanshan pulled Wang Yulon's sleeve, and Wang Yulon stopped talking. She hummed and cried, "Sister, Zhenye is really not dead. I am Zhenye's girlfriend. After I gave birth to the child, Zhenye wanted to give me and the child a name, so he wanted to fake his death and leave you, but I didn't expect that you would cremate Zhenya directly. Lin Shanshan hesitated. But sister, don't blame Zhenya. Zhenya did this just because he didn't want to hurt you. He is a kind person. Now Zhenya is gone. We just hope that you can accept this child and let the child get the inheritance he deserves. I drank a sip of water and imitated Wang Yulan's tone. You fart. Then she cried and said to Wang Yulan, Mom, I know that you and Zhenya have a bad relationship. Zhenya didn't leave you a penny in his will before he died. So you brought this woman who you found from nowhere to frame Zhenya and want to share Zhenya's inheritance. Right, Wang Yulan was almost mad at me, but for the sake of money, she calmed down. You are talking nonsense. Zhenya and I have a good relationship. This is Zhenya's child, I know it clearly. I took out Ma Zhenya's will directly. Mom, why did you lie? If you have a good relationship with Zhenya, why is there no name on this will? Why are all the inheritance given to me? Wang Yulan was speechless, and Lin Shanshan was still hesitating. After all, she couldn't just say that Ma Zhenya made a will for me to bear the debt. I glanced at the baby in the cradle and sneered in my heart. I wondered why he pretended to be a good husband for 5 years, but suddenly he didn't want to pretend anymore. It turned out that he had a child. Before the marriage, Ma Zhenya promised me that he would accompany me to be a dink, but only 5 years later, his illegitimate child was born. But I was not sad. After all, I had died once. I said calmly, Zhenya doesn't like children at all. We don't have children because Zhenya doesn't want them, so I don't believe it at all. You said that this child is Zhenya's, then please show me the evidence, such as a paternity test recognized by the law. Lin Shanshan and Wang Yulan paused. There is no paternity test, but the child is Zhenya's. I waved my hand. Comrade police, do you understand? They knew that my husband had been cremated. And they deliberately brought a child to ask for the inheritance. They also said that I cremated my husband. But what they said is completely contradictory, Wang Yulan said anxiously. I can identify with the child and prove that I am the child's grandmother. Doesn't that mean it is Zhenya's child? The police shook his head. That doesn't count. This can only prove that you and the child are related. But your relationship with Ma Zhenya cannot be proved, even if it can be proved. It cannot be confirmed that you and your husband only have Zhenya as a child. I held back my laughter. In fact, I insisted on cremating Ma Zhenya at that time. And a large part of it was because I was worried that he had an illegitimate child outside. I didn't expect that I really hit the jackpot. Wang Yulan and Lin Shanshan looked at each other, and Lin Shanshan gritted her teeth. No matter whose child it is, Zhenya is really not dead. She was the one who cremated Zhenya. She is a murderer and she cannot inherit Zhenya's inheritance. Lin Shanshan is right, but the premise is that you have to prove that I am the murderer. I suddenly looked at Dongjuan. Xiao Dong, you tell me, is Zhenya alive or dead? You are a doctor, you also have a family, think about it carefully. You may not remember, but I still remember that you and Mom rushed up to press the button when the burning case happened. If Zhenya is really alive, you and Mom are the murderer. I said that the two people's blocking behavior at that time was deliberately pressing the button, and Wang Yulan didn't say a word. Dong Jiwen gritted his teeth and didn't look at Wang Yulan and Lin Shanshan. He is really dead. I breathed a sigh of relief, but Lin Shanshan raised her mobile phone. I guessed that you would lie, so I brought evidence. Lin Shanshan played the recording on her phone. This recording was of Lin Shanshan, Ma Zhenya, Dong Jiwen, and Wang Yulan discussing fake death. Ma Zhenya's voice came from the phone. As disgusting as in the previous life, I will give you anesthesia. And you will find a way to make my wife unconscious, and then tell her that I have been cremated. I will give you 1 million after the matter is completed. However, this recording is not complete, and does not include the 4 people discussing how to make me owe debts. Dong Jiwen squatted down, not knowing how to defend himself. I don't know. Lin Shanshan seemed relieved. Sister, I really didn't lie to you. It was you who really killed Zhenya, so you should go to jail. And these inheritances should belong to Aunt Wang. I looked frightened and didn't say anything. I just took a handkerchief and wiped my tearless eyes. After a while of gathering my emotions, I burst into tears. Police comrade, I want to call the police. The 3 of them deliberately made my husband fake his death without telling me. I was so sad at the time that I didn't notice that my husband had passed away. I pointed at Dong Jiwen and Wang Yulan. They knew in the hospital that I wanted to cremate my husband, but they deliberately didn't tell me that my husband was not dead. They did it on purpose. They deliberately wanted me to cremate my husband, and then brought people to my house to rob my property. I asked Wang Yulon and Lin Shanshan. I knew my husband had passed away, and I cremated him according to the normal procedures. Is this wrong? Obviously not. The two of them didn't expect me to be so articulate. They thought I would collapse if I knew about this and would be led by them. But I have died once. I am no longer the simple and stupid me in my previous life. The moment I woke up, I had already thought about how to go through each step of the road. I cried so hard that I couldn't open my eyes. I called you to come to the hospital when I was in the hospital. You were there, too. Why didn't you tell me the truth at that time? If you just wanted a divorce, how could I not agree? Until one day, when I was picking up trash, I saw Ma Zhanye, who had passed away 10 years ago, driving a car and talking and laughing with a woman. Follow me. You deliberately cremated Zhanye again, making me the sinner who sent my husband to the crematorium. You are so cruel. Wang Yulon hesitated. That's because Zhanye said that he must make you believe it, so I dare not tell the truth. I took out my mobile phone. What about this? On my way to the crematorium, you called me. Which means you knew I was going to cremate Zhanye. I was too sad at the time and didn't answer the phone. Why didn't you send a text message? When we arrived at the crematorium, Zhanye hadn't been cremated yet. Why didn't you tell the truth, but instead press the incineration button while playing? Wang Yulon and Dong Jiwen were speechless. But I knew that because they were confident that they would have enough time. As long as they could get me out of the way at the crematorium for a while, then this thing would be successful. After all, wealth and honor are sought in danger. This farce was not concluded in the end. We both said we were right. And the police had to take us all back to the police station and temporarily detained us for investigation. However, after a few days of investigation, they found that I was really a very simple wife and had no idea that Ma Zhanye had cheated on me. I never asked about Ma Zhanye's business trips or social events, and never looked at his mobile phone. I also visited my neighbors, friends, and colleagues, and checked the surveillance of Ma Zhanye at home before his death, confirming that we were a good couple who loved each other and had never even quarreled. And the police could not know that I had been reborn. Just looking at the current evidence, how could such a wife inexplicably kill her husband? And Wang Yulon, Dong Jiwen, and Lin Shanshan, the three of them, said a lot of loopholes. They had countless opportunities to tell me that Ma Zhanye was not dead, but they had to wait until I cremated Ma Zhanye before telling me, especially Dong Jiwen and Wang Yulon, who clearly saw Ma Zhanye enter the incinerator, refused to tell the truth and even kissed him. Since I pressed the button, although they said it was unintentional, who would believe it? Not only that, the fake death at the beginning was already very alarmist. In this way, the investigation found that I was just an innocent and pitiful woman who lost her husband, while the other three were imprisoned for suspected murder. Half a year later, the three were convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. However, Wang Yulon was not so lucky. After she learned that she was sentenced to life imprisonment, she had a heart attack and died. After Dong Jiwen's wife knew about this, she immediately divorced Dong Jiwen and took the child away. I heard that Dong Jiwen was full of remorse and had attempted suicide several times in prison, but none of them succeeded. As for Lin Shanshan, she contacted me several times and begged me to visit her in prison. I ignored her, and she began to write to me, begging me to be magnanimous and raise the child for Ma Zhanye's sake. I wrote her a letter in reply, telling her that the child had been sent to an orphanage by me. I was not a saint and it was impossible for me to raise the child of someone who killed my husband. Then I sold the house and used the inheritance left to me by Ma Zhanye to buy a bigger house in a better location. I always carry Ma Zhanye's ashes with me because I believe in God and I want him to see what a happy life I am living.